Welcome, welcome friends and family, and I'd like to welcome you to Jim's 5 a.m. Club. And today I'm coming to you from the idyllic, the iconic Bondi Beach. Let me just do a 360 and show you where I'm standing so you can appreciate the vista, the glorious view that I have. I'm at the southern end of Bondi, and it's an overcast day, but the sun is fighting to push through. I got a nice little sunrise this morning, a misty sunrise. It's one of those sunrises where the sun just burst through the cloud for a couple of moments, and it was magical, absolutely magical. So I did a 5 a.m. club with the sun rising in the background, and I was just so happy that I was able to capture the beauty of this magnificent beach. And it's got to be one of the best beaches in the world. Not only is it long, it's also wide, it's accessible, there are waves for surfing, there's a pool next to it, or two pools, one on either side, for lap swimming and for swimming in safety. And it's just a glorious place to be, and a place that hopefully I can live long enough to get to enjoy it for many years to come. So what I'd like to do today is take you through a book summary, and the book summary that I'll take you through is entitled The Talent Code, and it's written by an author named Daniel Coyle. And it cracks open the myth of talent. Earlier today I did a book summary which talked about the genetics and how important genetics are and our genes are for sporting prowess and achievement. But this book here takes a different view, and it says that regardless of the talent that you have, regardless of the genes that you have, it's all about mastery. So basically, regardless of whether or not you've got the right genes, if you have the right mindset, if you have the right frame of mind and work ethic, then there's basically nothing that you can't achieve once you set yourself on the path of mastery. So once again, this book here is all about cracking open the myth of talent and basically allowing people to understand that they shouldn't hold back. They shouldn't shut down their dreams or let other people shut down their dreams for fear of not having the talent. Because the bottom line is, and I've read this in another book, that most of us only achieve 20 or 30% of our potential. Very, very few people actually reach anything more in terms of their potential, because at the end of the day, most of us are soft. Most of us don't have the ambition, the drive, the why to become the very, very best we possibly can. And it's only under trying circumstances, it's only under being pressured by life or somebody forcing enormous pressure upon you that you really see that there's a lot more that you can achieve and there's a lot more you can do. So the author says very, very boldly in the beginning of this book that anyone can make it. And it's all about mastery and not about your genes and not about your environment. So regardless of how you were born, regardless of what other people think you can do and what you can't do, or what your capabilities and abilities are and your aptitude is, it's really up to you to prove them wrong and to prove you right. So the author kicks off with the first point in this book, saying that basically you can hardwire any skill into your body by developing more myelin in your brain. So this is a scientific approach to how to rewire your brain and how to develop exceptional skill. So this is once again looking at it from a different angle, and it's looking at it from a scientific perspective. So what is myelin? I must admit this is the first time I've ever heard of myelin, but myelin is the fatty white substance that covers and protects and insulates all of your axons. Axons, which are part of your brain cells, that link one neuron to the next. So the brain is made up of billions and billions and billions of neurons, and the thing that links one neuron to the other is called myelin. Myelin. And it's there to cover, protect and insulate the connector between the parts of your brain. So the author here then talks about the fact that these links, this myelin that links the neurons in your brain, is the pathway for which electrons flow as thoughts. So stay with me, because it is a little bit complicated, but it is an aha sort of moment. So electrons pass over the links between the neurons via a thing called the myelin. And these electrons enable us to think, to act. And the more myelin you have, the more of this fatty white substance that you have between your neurons, then it enables you. It becomes an enabler to enable faster flow of electrons, so faster activity and more activity. So the thickness of the myelin determines how fast and how accurately, listening here, how fast and how accurately the electrons can go from one neuron to the next, therefore how well you are able to perform the corresponding thought and skill. So what we're saying here is that you can build the skill, you can build myelin, you can act faster and more accurately and coordinate your body based on this myelin substance. So what we're saying here, so stay with me, is that the myelin, the thickness of the myelin and the quantity of the myelin and the quality of the myelin is able to turn little paths in your brain into streets, roads, highways, and eventually into autobahns. Why is this important? The reason why it's important is that the deeper the pathway is between one neuron and the other, the more automatic and the more hardwired the skill is. You know, you've heard of muscle memory, and what muscle memory is the automatic response that we have. When something becomes automated, you don't have to think about it. And the bigger, the deeper, the wider the gap, the more myelin that connects each of those neurons with that thought process, the more powerful and quicker and more accurate your skill is going to be in that particular area. So now that we've understood and we've talked about myelin, the next thing we need to do is to understand how do we work this myelin to work for us? How do we make it a bigger part of our life and a bigger part of our learning and training regime? And the author here talks to us, and we've talked about this before time and time again, but he reminds us and he helps us understand and join the dots. He said that deep practice, deep and deliberate, accurate practice is how you grow your myelin, and it consists of 3 parts. There are 3 actions that you need to take in order to develop a healthy flow and a strong volume of myelin. And I learnt this years ago in my martial arts. I learnt it when I was doing karate, and it's very, very simple. And the way you do it is by repetition. You need to engage repetition. So I've got the Bondi icebergs behind me. So repetition is the key, and you need to make mistakes. You need to embrace and make mistakes, because by fixing the mistakes through repetition is where you build excellence, you build capability, and you build myelin. I'm just admiring the crabs. There are a number of crabs under these rocks. So what I'll do is I'll organise one day to come down here with my granddaughter and do a bit of crab hunting. Let me just move a little bit out of the way so I don't get splashed by these waves. So myelin, let's get back to myelin. Myelin is a living tissue that is like a muscle and must be exercised in order to stay healthy and to grow. So you need to exercise your skills, exercise your thoughts, do it over and over again, in order to build your myelin stores so you've got a healthy mind and a healthy body. So by not exercising and not using your mind and not putting yourself under pressure and not having problems, what you're doing is you're losing your sources and source of myelin. This is powerful stuff. So what we need to do is not give up in life and to continue to welcome pressure, welcome pain, welcome suffering, welcome mistakes and problems, because through solving these problems you get the satisfaction, but you're also building the myelin in your brain to help you keep a healthy and active mind. This is important and powerful stuff. So the more that you use your axons in your brain, the fatter the myelin layer around them gets. So practice makes perfect. Deliberate, good practice. And don't fear making mistakes, as we said before, because by making mistakes, we're then invited to fix those mistakes. And when we're fixing those mistakes, we're going through a loop, through a process, through repetition, which builds, enhances, and maintains our myelin levels. So when growth slows down, practice needs to get deeper. And as I said, I've learned this in martial arts through drills. You do the simple things over and over and over again, and then once you've sorted that drill out, then you add another layer and another layer and another layer on top, which means that we're getting deeper and deeper and better at our skill and at our training and at our practice. So deep work and deliberate practice is the key. And making mistakes and fixing mistakes also is great, because it allows new neurons to fire together, and it strengthens the myelin as you get better. So making mistakes and fixing mistakes builds more neurons and connects more neurons together. So the picture that you have in your brain and the solution that you have and the mental pictures that you have available to you, the inventory of solutions that you have available in your library becomes bigger and more diverse, so that when you have a challenge in the future, then you do a pattern search, and then when you find something which is similar, you automatically respond in a way which will allow you to solve that problem as best you can. So the last point in this book, the author talks about how you practice. So whenever you practice, the author says you need to chunk it up into the smallest possible units. So break your practice up into smallest possible units and build excellence in each of those units through deliberate practice. Your practice needs to be deliberate, and it needs to be broken down into the smallest component as possible. And as you perfect each component, you increase the layer, you increase the complexity, and you add them together. And when you're adding them together, more neurons are firing at the same time. And by fixing your mistakes, then you're building more myelin, more connections, and deeper pathways in your brain. So in order to fix mistakes, the author talks now about more techniques. In order to fix mistakes, you need to be able to spot them. How many people do we know who are just egotistical, who just don't want to focus on anything wrong that they do, and they don't want any feedback, any negative feedback from anybody, because it injures their ego. Those people who are ego-bound are not going to grow, develop, and become the best possible version of themselves, because they're not going to be fixing their mistakes, because they're not going to allow themselves or others to spot them and help them identify them and break them down and sort them out. So it takes a lot of time to master things. But the reason why it takes a lot of time is that we're building deep pathways. But once those pathways are built and developed, then they become automated autobahns, allowing you to automatically respond without having to think about it. You become very, very effective. So don't fear the length of time that it takes to master something, because once you've mastered it, then you've got it down pat, and it becomes an automated process happening at your subconscious level. You don't have to think of it consciously. It just happens. All right? So welcome the opportunity to do as much practice and to solve as many problems as you can, because by doing that, you're building patterns, you're building flow, you're building neurons, and you're building layers and layers of myelin. So the author here was saying that when he writes 20 versions of the same sentence and then picks one which is the best one. So could you imagine writing a book or doing anything where in order to master it and to get the best possible outcome, you take 20 options and hone it and hone it and hone it until you get the best outcome. And as I said, I've lived this. I've lived this in my karate life. I've lived this in my work life. I've lived this in my dance fitness life. And I'm living it in my Jim's 5 a.m. life as well. Because the more vlogs I do, the better I get at it. Or at least I think I'm getting better at it. So the bottom line and the last lesson from this wonderful book is that we need to learn to endure the process by understanding the biology and the science that sits behind it. And to remember to respect the process and to understand that it takes time to master anything. And they talk about the 10,000 hours. In order to master most things, they say that it takes 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to get there. And the reason why most people are not masters of anything is that they haven't got the guts, they haven't got the patience, and they haven't got the why to get them to focus on something so that they become the best at what they do. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me on this wonderful, wonderful day down here at Bondi. And I love talking about the Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, where he cracks open the myth of talent and tells us that it's all about the myelin and it's all about deliberate practice. And basically, you can achieve anything possible if you put in the hours, you develop the myelin, and you develop autobahns of patterns in your brain where neurons are firing together and they're doing it automatically. So you don't have to think about it, your body just does it. So we understand that there is a plasticity of the brain, and the brain, you can alter the structure of your brain through your conscious, the questions you ask, the tasks you set, and the instructions you give. And this book here, once again, takes us on a journey and teaches us how it's done and the science behind it. So let's finish up with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I am well, and I feel absolutely great. To my friends and family, stay connected, stay relevant, and stay mindful, stay reasonable, and let's learn that talent is all about deliberate practice, and we need to use our brains, use our mind, challenge ourselves, and welcome that challenge on a regular basis in order to grow, develop, and keep a healthy mind and a healthy body. So don't give up. Don't reach 60 and decide to cruise, because maintaining a status quo by doing nothing is a fallacy. Because by doing nothing, by not challenging yourself on a daily, on a moment-by-moment basis, will mean that you're falling behind and you're gradually dying. So the challenge that this author gives us, and the challenge that I give you today on Sunday from down here at Bondi, is to keep on pushing, keep on solving problems, and keep on practicing whatever you do so that you keep those myelin stores in your brain, that fatty tissue joining the neurons and the axons, covering the axons, and keeping it healthy, plump, and supple. So take care. I know it was a long one today, but I think it was a powerful one. So forgive me for talking for so long, but let's make the most of it and gain as much as we can from these wonderful opportunities that we have to join each other and go on a volta and a wonderful journey. Yassas from Jim's 5am Club. Take care, and we'll chat again. Bye for now.